Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fan Sports New York Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcilio Langella. And Mars, this is our Week 8 preview for Section 1B, 1C, and D in the Hudson Valley Football League. We got a mix up in this one because C has one regular season. C and D have one regular season game left, but B is in the playoffs, and the Hudson Valley Football League is in the championship, Mars. So a nice mix of games here as we kick off playoffs for some teams, and we are right at the doorstep of playoffs for other classes.
Yeah, man, I feel like playoff football is here, and I think that's the most exciting part of the year because you're getting that one-game elimination and you're seeing who really is the best, right? Yeah. All year long, your projections, now you get to find out why. Yeah,
and we want to welcome our fans. We appreciate you guys for tuning in each week. Again, if you haven't followed our social media accounts, please do. It's on the screen. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We would greatly appreciate it. And all our content can be found at fansportsny.com, where you can give donations and check merchandise. And how this is going to work, we'll talk about the games on slate. We'll talk about the C division because that's the one that's going to the playoffs next week. And then we're going to discuss the playoffs. And this is the last week we're going to talk about all the games. We're going to focus in on the playoffs after this. So we're not going to be talking and discussing about the other teams once the regular season ends, and it ends this week, at least for C. But let's go to the games. Byram Hills at Hen Hud, that's a playoff game. Pearl River at Pleasantville is a playoff game. They have a nice CD matchup. Haldane at Dobbs Ferry. Haldane 6-1, Dobbs Ferry 7-0. We have a Hudson Valley Football League game. Irvington at Ramapo. The Hudson Valley Football League Championship, Greeley at Poughkeepsie, is a real interesting one, and we'll talk about that one. Rhinebeck at Magnus is a non-league game. Woodlands at CrotonHarmon, non-league. Brook at Tuckahoe, non-league. Valhalla at Hastings, non-league. And then the other two playoff games, Briarcliff Hamilton Football Program at Nanuet is a playoff game, and Ardsley at Bronxville. And obviously C, the top two teams on each side go to the playoffs. C is a little bit confusing, but one thing I know is Dobbs Ferry and Valhalla are in. And the question is, who's the next two? I think Albertus Magnus is the fast track for one of them. The other question is CrotonHarmon or Hastings and Rhinebeck all battling at that second spot. So going to be real interesting. But Mars, before we get into the playoffs, we've done it for the other videos. The Hog Molly Report, the first ever Hog Molly Report, you're going to rank the top four, at least in this one, amongst the BC, D, and Hudson Valley Football League offensive lines, the units on this one. I made my list, but I know you're the Hog Molly expert, so I'm going to compare it to yours. And I'm just going to start off with my top four. And this, again, our opinion based on what we watch in these games. But the first one I'm going to go with is Dobbs Ferry. I think Dobbs Ferry has one of the best rushing attacks, and it's because of this offensive line that has been so dominant, led by Regalado. But there's other guys on this line that have done a really good job of blocking and moving bodies up front. They're my number one. My number two is Ardsley. I think when Ardsley is at its best, is running the football at a high volume. They are strong up front. They move people, and they're pretty versatile on the way they can run the football. So that's my number two. My number three is Tuckahoe. I know small school, not going to give a lot of love to small schools. Tuckahoe's offensive line has been tremendous this year and has allowed that offense to be really dominant and tied for fourth. I have two teams. I couldn't decide this one, but I have Byram Hills and Pleasantville tied at the fourth spot. Byram Hills is the most explosive offense in B. Pleasantville has one of the most explosive rushing attacks, and it starts with that offensive line for both units. That's my top four, Mars. What are your Hog Mollies?
Well, I'm sure I'm going to cause some controversy when I start naming these. I kind of caused a controversy between Somers and John Jay last year when I had named John Jay across the river to be the best. So I'll give my four, and I'll agree with you on number one. I think Dobbs Ferry is definitely going to be the top-tier offensive line. They've just been so efficient at their rush offense, so you have to give it to them. I'm going to go with Tuckahoe, number two. I feel like they have been very good this season, and I'm talking about the first two teams are smaller schools, but they've been so good at opening up lanes.
And we're talking about production, compared to their opponents.
And they've been so effective at just opening up lanes for the skill players, and it's been very impressive. I might sound like a homer, but I'm going to go Pleasantville here. Pleasantville, if you look at their rush offense, they've been so efficient. You have some big-time plays by obviously Daniel Picard, Kieran Cotter, and you have a lot of other pieces that have just been contributing on the rush offense. But those two guys, I mean, as much as I don't really like to talk about players of the week, but Daniel Picard's been getting players of the week nonstop. I feel like he's been getting it.
I hate that low one voting system.
He's getting it multiple times. But the point is, he does deserve it. But the point is that the offensive line has established this for this offense. And I think the most interesting thing is about this O-line is that they actually have a rotation. You see guys switching in and switching out, and it's like a group effort. It's like the Hogs as a unit have been efficient. Not even just 5 guys in general. You start to getting 6, even 7 guys that rotate in, and they all are pretty efficient. So that's why I'm going to go with Pleasantville here, and then I'm going to go with Ardsley at number 4. And Ardsley, like you said, has been moving bodies around, and I think the reason why I'm going to give Pleasantville the edge was when you go to that game one-on-one, I think Pleasantville had just a slight advantage, allowed them to take that victory there, but Ardsley has been very impressive too. I feel like when you watch that last game against Nanuet, they were really moving people against a team that was born and bred for that. So I agree.
All right, well, let's go over the game. We're going to go over the playoff games in B and then talk about the championship in the Hudson Valley Football League, and then we're going to pick all the games at the end. So let's go into the B matchup of ours. First one, Byram Hills 4-3 at Hen Hud, who's 4-3. This is a rematch of Week 3 where Byram Hills won versus Hen Hud at home 41-7. And so Hen Hud obviously looking for revenge, and they're home this time around in the playoffs. Let's start with Byram Hills Mars offensively. This is the number 1 offense in B. Last time they played Hen Hud, the offensive line, they come out in the tight end wing in the gun, and this offensive line did a really, really solid job of opening up lanes against the smaller front of Hen Hud. And running back Jaworski versus Hen Hud, he had 212 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. And I think he's going to see a heavy dose again this time around. But their running back, Rocco, has really stepped up the last couple of weeks. Last week, 153 yards rushing, 60 yards receiving. That duo at the rushing attack is going to be strong, but the play action and rollout game by their quarterback Jared Cohn, I think, was the biggest difference and spark plug in that one. Versus Hen Hud, Marcy had 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, and it was the off-platform throws, when plays break down, that were real backbreakers for Hen Hud, throwing into some of those big-bodied wide receivers. Defensively, this is the number 5 defense. I thought last week they played well. The 2 weeks prior to that, Mars, they gave up 80 points. So the question to me is which Byram Hills defense is going to show up. The goal has got to be to stop the rush attack. Again, a lot of off-tackle stuff with the wing tee, outside runs, play action. You got to prevent the big plays and funnel everything inside the guards. That's got to be a big component, and don't fall for those counter plays. It's going to be obviously a big mess. For Hen Hud, Mars, this is another team I feel like which team is going to show up, because they at times show that they could be a real force, and at times you're scratching your head on why did that happen. Offensively, this rush attack is obviously the number 1 priority of this offense. The offensive line is a scrappy group. It's led by Whalen, but their running back, Anthony Panettiere, he has been so good all year, and last week he had another dominant performance, 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has been really solid, but who else is going to step up and make that big play? Is it their quarterback, McGuire? Is it Parks, who had a touchdown last week? That, to me, is the question. Defensively, I thought overall this defense has been pretty good. Outside of the Byram Hills game, they're the 4th-ranked defense out of 10. They've only given up over 20 points in one game outside of the Byram Hills one. So this has been a solid unit. It's an aggressive unit. It's a penetrating defense. Can they hold up against the power running game this time around? And I'm curious to see the adjustments they make, Mars. What do you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, this game is interesting because I feel like the fact that they already met before really sets the stage for whether or not Hen Hud can get that revenge. And I feel like we look at Byram, their offensive line has been very good. They've been keeping opening up lanes for their skill players to make big plays. And I feel like the biggest question I have for Byram is can they keep that going? I feel like Hen Hud has had a solid defense, right? They're ranked 4 out of the 10 teams. The question that they need to answer is, we can play aggressive against this big offensive line that Byram has, and we're going to send the heat to cause Byram to have to make really try to make them cause a mistake, right? I think that's going to be the big question in this game. It should be interesting.
To me, the players to watch, I'm looking at, again, one from each team. Their quarterback, Jared Cohn from Byram Hills, this is a guy who made some big back-breaking plays against Hen Hud last time. Interested to see how he plays this time around. And they're running, and for Hen Hud, they're running back Anthony Panettiere. He is really the engine, the core engine of this offense, and when he gets going, it really opens things up. That's going to be a big one for this one. All right, let's go to the next game, Mars. Another B playoff game. Pearl River 3-4 at Pleasantville, who's 7-0. And this is a rematch from week 2. So it's been quite a few weeks since these guys played. Pleasantville won versus Pearl River 33-7. And let's start with Pearl River. Offensively, they've been a bit up and down this year. And, their quarterback, Ryan O'Neal, is going to need to play a big one because it's hard to run the ball against this Pleasantville defense consistently. So they're going to have to hit some big pass plays. And I thought the first time they played, Mars, there was passing opportunities that they just missed. It was, again, slightly off timing, maybe overthrew a little bit. Maybe the wide receiver probably could have caught it. They just couldn't get on the same page. And I do think they got to take advantage of those matchups. I know they're going to try to start. I know they've been more balanced running the ball since week 2. And they're going to have to try to run the ball to create at least some honesty on this defense, but against those 5-man fronts is going to be hard. So I am looking at Nick Carbone. Again, he's had 548 yards on the season, and their running back, O'Connell. Can they establish some form of running game? But I do see getting condensed formulas and formations and the play action out of it. Again, getting those one-on-one matchups, they're going to be there. They're going to have opportunities and try to hit some big plays to guys like Vitiello, who I think has 7 touchdowns in the season. Defensively, stopping the run is going to be the main priority. Last time they played Pleasantville, they couldn't stop Cotter, and they were getting beat up front. So this time around, how are they going to respond and answer? This time around is going to be the question, because if they can't stop the run, they're not going to have a chance in this one. Pleasantville offensively, this is the number 4 offense out of 10 teams in B. They obviously want to establish the downhill running game. That is their identity. They want to rely on this offensive line that has been strong this year and did a good job against Pearl River last time. I'm expecting to see similar formulas. Cotter, he had 3 touchdowns the last time they played Pearl River, but a guy who's been stepping up, and you mentioned him, Mars, Daniel Picard. He has 5 touchdowns over the last 2 games. This guy has become an extremely explosive player at the right time. He's always been a good player, but he's really starting to catch some wind on these last couple games. This guy is a game wrecker, and I'm curious, how efficient is this pass attack? They've been solid over the last few weeks. Can they continue that this time around? Defensively, Mars, this is the number 1 defense in Class B. They are aggressive. They like to have a bunch of guys line up near the line of scrimmage. They like to bring some pressure. They want to win the battle up front and create some pressure on their quarterback, which will lead to some turnovers if they can execute, Mars. What do you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, this game is interesting because of the fact that, like I said for the previous game, these two teams played against each other, right? So it's really going to be about whether or not Pearl River can adjust enough to make the big plays that they are looking to do, and it's going to depend on Ryan O'Neal. Right, he's going to have to make the big plays, especially in the pass. You said this before, but there was opportunities, right, to hit big pass plays. They just did not hit them. And I think the most important thing for them is try to get those one-on-one matchups that they are looking for, and try to see if they can hit the pass. For Pleasantville, I mean, they have obviously going 7-0, right? Finish off the season against Westlake. I think it was a pretty big thing for them, but that's going to have to carry over into the home game, and I think it's going to have to be along the backs of this offensive line and on the backs of Kieran Cotter and Daniel Picard. And I think one of the most shocking things this season, and not shocking, but biggest surprises is going to be how DiCaprio has been playing really efficient. He's been really efficient. And that was something that you looked at last year and said, hey, if this kid had been efficient last year, you could have saw some games change. And we said at the beginning of the season, this team would depend on how efficient he was, and he has been very efficient. Yeah, especially
over the last couple of weeks.
He has been making a lot of mistakes, and I think that's the big thing. That allows the offense to stay consistent and stay stable. And
their identity is running the football and playing good defense, and the making enough pass plays to win the football game. And the formula's giving them 7-0.
Exactly.
So the formula works. Execute the formula.
Yep, I agree. And the defensively, number 1 defense, man. You just got to really, at the end of the day, you know exactly what Pearl River is going to do, right? They're going to try to throw the ball a little bit because the rush offense has struggled. So,
they've been better since the first time they played.
They have. And the big thing for them is that if you're going to send the heat, can you make sure that your secondary players can match up to their best skill players? So it's going to be a question to see if they can do that.
Players to watch for me, Daniel Picard for Pleasantville. He's been a real stud these last couple weeks. That's a guy I'm keeping an eye on. And for Pearl River, it's Nick Carbone. He's another guy who can make play. He runs hard. He's going to have to run pretty hard to get those harder runs this time around. Let's go to another game. Briarcliff Hamilton, 1-6 at Nanuet, who's 6-1. This is another rematch from week 1 when Nanuet won at Briarcliff 21-7. Let's start with the Briarcliff Hamilton football program. Offensively, Mars, they've definitely gotten better. The last 2 out of the 3 weeks, they've scored 28-plus points. And it's on the back of one of their most dangerous players, Brandon Rispoli. He lines up at the running back, lines up at wide receiver. Real electric player and real important two-way player for them. And obviously, he's going to be a focal point of this offense. But I'm actually looking at their quarterback, Ben Raphael, who to me is going to have to make some big plays because Nanuet, I would imagine defensively, is going to try to take him away, especially when he's in the backfield, which will leave one-on-one opportunities. And I'm probably going to go into this, spread him out a little bit, get out of those two back sets, and try to win with the quick passing game, right? Get the ball out of your hand. Rispoli's a guy you can line up in the backfield and in the slot and throw it to him, but he's going to have to make some big plays for them against this physical Nanuet defense. Defensively, again, you're stopping the downhill rush attack, which is going to be extremely important. Last time they played Nanuet, they gave up over 220 yards rushing. So the goal is they got to be much better at stopping the run, or Nanuet's going to control this game. So I'm looking at guys like Amador, Saw, Harris, McKenna. These are guys going to have to step up, be very active, and watch that play action pass against some of those big tight ends. For Nanuet offensively, Mars, I'm expecting this offensive line to step up after being a little bit physically beaten up last week. And I'm expecting to step up in a big way. And I know Moran, he's probably a player of the year candidate in B. He's had a real tremendous year, and you can put him in as the eye back. You can put him in as a tailback. You put him in offset. He lines up as a wing. He lines up as a slot. In the passing game, this is a guy who can move around and you can get him the ball in many different ways, which makes him really special. And then you obviously have other guys who can contribute in Bryzan, who is kind of the downhill running back. And Frondy coming back this week is going to be big because he's a real important piece of this offense. Dual threat guy who has been really solid off of play action, throwing to guys like Lenosi and Flanagan. And that brings another dynamic to this offense that he needs to be a part of. And I think they're going to try to utilize that, but it all starts with running the football. Defensively, this is the number 3 defense. They kind of dropped 2 spots after last week. Not a great showing last week, to be honest. I'm anticipating them to bring a lot better effort this time around, especially up front. And all eyes are going to have to be on Rispoli, Mars. What do you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I feel like this is an interesting matchup because of the fact that you're just going to, Nanuet has struggle, right? They struggle against Ardsley. Briarcliff is definitely going to be seen as the underdog here, right? I feel like everyone is saying that, there's no chance, right? Everyone's saying that from everything I hear. But Briarcliff is definitely going to have to depend on Rispoli for making the big plays, right? He has the ability to be a game breaker, right? And I feel like they've been getting better as time progressed. I feel like they've been scoring a lot more points, they've been more efficient for sure, but Rispoli has to be a force in this game. And for Nanuet, you got showed that when a big front like Ardsley shows up, it's a little tougher, right? So the question is going to be, do you bounce back? Do you kind of think about what you have to do and settle the issues that you have and really establish the run that you got you to this point, right? It's really going to be dependent on this rush offense. It's also going to depend on Frondy, right, as being a dual threat type of guy that he is all season long. And I feel like if you can do what you do best, run the ball downhill and get to the outside, this game should be fun.
Yeah, and to me, the players to watch, I'm looking at the quarterbacks. I know the stars are the running backs, the important cogs are this offensive lines. But I'm looking at these quarterbacks who could be real X factors in this game. Frondy for Nanuet and Raphael for Briarcliff. Let's go to the final playoff game in B, Mars. To me, probably the most interesting one. Ardsley 5-2 at Bronxville, who's 4-3. This is a week 3 rematch, where Ardsley won versus Bronxville. Ardsley was home. This time they're at Bronxville, but they won the last matchup 28-6. And I thought Ardsley last week had a really important victory. I thought it was something to pick up momentum. Offensively, I thought they made a real statement. Last week, they were going to run the ball with physicality. They were going to rely on the run game, and it came through for them. And it starts with that offensive line, guys like Costas leading the charge and winning up front. And it was a group effort. But I love the way that they ran the ball and got back to running the football, and with the power running game being their identity. And their running back, Jack Phelan, was really good. He had 158 yards rushing last week. Last time they played Bronxville, Mars, he had 180 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he's going to get a heavy dose this time around again. But he wasn't alone. James Weber had 83 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Ryan Watson had 70 yards. Quarterback Ballarge had a rushing touchdown. To me, getting everybody involved in the running game and being patient with the running game is going to be key for them for a couple reasons, right? One, I think that's their best identity. And number two, it keeps that Bronxville offense on the sideline, which is going to be really important. They can control the game. I think if they pass less than 10 times, Mars, I think they're going to win this game. I think that it's going to show that this offense is moving the ball, running it. If they pass less than 10, not that they can't pass it more, but it shows that if they could pass 10 times, Ballars can be efficient in those 10 passes, and you can run the football and win this game. Can they finish drives is going to be the big question. The losses, they couldn't. The wins, they do. So that's what we're going to see. Defensively, this is the number 2 defense. I think defensively, Mars, this has been their most consistent unit. They played strong all year. The last time they played Bronxville, I thought they did a really good job of keeping O'Neal in the pocket and of forcing him to throw in the pocket and creating pressure on him. I thought they did a really good job of avoiding the big runs by O'Neal. And last week, they gave, what was it? Less than 200 yards of offense last week. So this defense has been pretty strong all year, and they're going to have to step up again to a plate against a really explosive Bronxville offense. And when I go to Bronxville, Mars, they had a nice win 2 weeks ago against Byram Hills. They were practically on a bye last week because of a COVID issue with Putt Valley. Offensively, this is the number 2 offense. They've had 3 games of over 40 points. And obviously, we start with O'Neal. Mars, the last time he played, he had 6 touchdown passes. And they move him around. He was at the quarterback spot. They lined him up as a receiver. I actually like that. I actually think it brings, again, a heavy dose of quarterback, obviously, but moving him around forces the defense to have to adjust and bracket him no matter where he is, which opens things up for everybody else. I also thought running back Garofalo really showed up the last time they played Ardsley and had a solid game. He has been good all season long. Ever since that, in the early season, it was a little hit and miss, but ever since that game, he has really been carrying it. He has 165 yards last week, and this offensive line has done a good job, especially in run blocking, guys like Mays leading the way. Their game is up-tempo, fast-paced. They got to get to the second level. The question is, can they make enough plays in the passing game to turn this game? Because, again, to me, getting O'Neal in open field, he's the best player. I think he's the best player in the class right now. So they have the best player. Can they get him at the second level? Because he's impossible to tackle at that second level. He really is. But if he doesn't get going, you can stop him early on. That's when you can slow him down. Defensively, Mars, this is the big question for this team. They're 9th out of 10th in B in points allowed, okay? They're obviously the last defense out of the playoff teams. They have a tough time stopping the run. They do. They have a tough time stopping big plays. But can they create a turnover or two? That's going to be the question. Can they create a turnover and give their offense some extra possessions? That's going to be key in this one because they're not just going to magically turn around and become a top 2 defense. But what can you do? Can you win on third downs? Can you win in the red zone, which is preventing them from scoring touchdowns? And can you create a turnover or two? That, to me, would be a win for this Bronxville defense. Mars, what do you want to talk about in this one?
Yeah, this game's probably the most interesting one because of the fact that these teams, I feel like, are the most evenly matched of everyone in B at this moment. Like, I feel like when you look at Ardsley, I feel like they have the ability to move bodies with their offensive line, and they have a lot of weapons, right? A lot of guys that can make the big play. Bronxville, O'Neal is just... he's just the show, right? I feel like he has the ability to carry the offense on his shoulders and make big plays when you need him to make big plays. And you watch him in every game and every week, he shows up and he's consistent. And I feel like that's such a deadly thing to see. And when you look at this game, I feel like it's going to be the important thing is going to depend on Ardsley's offensive line making the run game established, right, for them. And for Bronxville, it's going to depend on, can you get O'Neal outside the pocket and make him do some magic, right?
Yep.
He's like the magic man. Well, once he gets outside the pocket, he'll make some amazing throw that will hit pinpoint down the field, or better yet, he'll just run around at you, right? So that, I feel like that's the scary thing about O'Neal, is he can do both. And I agree with you. Bronxville's defense is definitely going to have to step up big time because, they're considered to be the second worst defense in all of B. So if they can step up, and we see them do it before, if they can step up and stop, get their offense back on the field, that's where they get scary because their offense is very high octane,
yep.
High scoring. So if their defense does their job and you get their offense back on the field, they'll definitely score some points.
Yeah, and to me, I go to players to watch. I'm actually going to look at a unit for Ardsley, and that's that offensive line. I mean, they made a statement last week. Can they continue that ball rolling this time around? And for Bronxville, I'm actually looking at a wide receiver outside linebacker, Chris Kelty, a guy that's not talked about a lot. I really like him as a football player. He's going to have to play big because they're going to have to make some plays in the pass game. He's going to have to make some, and on the edge at the outside linebacker spot, they're going to have to make some tackles. Let's go to the final game, Mars, and this is the championship game, and this is for Hudson Valley Football League. Greeley 6-1 at Poughkeepsie. He was 5-2. This is a rematch from Week 5. It's only been a couple weeks ago when Poughkeepsie won at home versus Greeley 24-20. So they're going back to Poughkeepsie for the championship. Let's start with Greeley, Mars. Offensively, this is actually the number one offense in the Hudson Valley Football League. To me, the engine of it is their quarterback, Ryan Wool. Dual threat kid. I mean, this is a guy you're going to see some zone read, you're going to see some quarterback counters, you're going to see some RPO stuff and some rollout passes. But they put a lot on this kid's plate, and he has delivered for them this year. Last time they played, I thought the receivers of Greeley made some really nice plays against Poughkeepsie. One guy in particular who actually played really well last week, Jameson Blakesley. I mean, 5 catches, 150 yards, and 3 touchdowns, was an absolute stud. Can they come up big again against this Poughkeepsie aggressive defense, which to me is going to try to bail out to stop the running game, and those quarterback runs will open up one-on-one opportunities. So that to me is going to be big. Can they develop a consistent running game against the speed of Poughkeepsie? And when I look at defensively, Mars, this is the number 2 defense in the Hudson Valley Football League. Last time they played Poughkeepsie, they gave up way too many big plays, over 400 yards of offense. So I'm looking at this defensive line. Koku, Doheny. They're going to have to slow down Sam Moore, who is an absolute stud for Poughkeepsie. And they got to be wary of the quarterback scrambles. So those defensive linemen are going to have to dictate this game. They have the talent to. Can they come up big in this one in the championship game is going to be key. When I look at Poughkeepsie offensively, Mars, this is the number 2 offense in the Hudson Valley Football League. They are explosive, and it all starts with their running back, Sam Moore. Mars has over 1,000 yards in the season. He has 4 touchdowns last week. He is an absolute stud. He can run inside. He can run on some stretch plays. He could block. He could catch the ball. This is an all-around running back and probably the best player in the Hudson Valley Football League. And, he's not the only one. I mean, last time they played, I thought their quarterback, Francis, made some really nice plays with his arms and his legs. He had 3 touchdown passes versus Greeley last time, 2 to Davon Robinson and 1 to Nigel Whitaker. When everyone's trying to bail out to stop Sam Moore, it opens things up for everybody. And Poughkeepsie has the athletes to hit big plays. We've seen it all year long. Defensively, again, by a short hair, they're the number 1 defense over Greeley. They're an aggressive style defense. They want to bring some extra defenders. They're going to send some stunts, cause penetration. The most important guy to me is Nigel Whitaker. He acts kind of like a strong safety outside linebacker, and he's all over the field to make plays for this team. And he's going to have to be huge in this one, Mars. This is the championship, Mars. What do you want to talk about on these 2 teams?
I mean, you're playing the number 1 offense in Greeley versus the number 1 defense in Poughkeepsie, and the same thing vice versa on the other side of the ball for both these teams. I feel like it's interesting. I want to see. They played each other already, but I really want to see a showdown. I want to see what really can be. I mean, Greeley being in the HVFL is obviously a big deal, and the fact that they're going all the way to the title in the first year is a great thing for them to see.
Poughkeepsie's first winning season in 9 years.
So I'm saying both ways
good
here.
Stories, yeah.
Good stories, right? I feel like I want to see a game. I want to see a showdown because it just makes it more exciting, and I feel like Greeley has a lot to be proud of, especially on the offensive side. You got Ryan Wall has been very good. You have a lot of athletes on this offense that have been making big plays, and they've been really giving Ryan a lot of ability, a lot of chances to make some points. And defensively, I feel like the D line is going to have to step up big time and really hold the line of scrimmage because Poughkeepsie has a big playability about them on the offensive side. They have a lot of speed. If they break one spot, they could be gone, right? And Sam Moore is a guy that you definitely have to key in on if you're looking for Greeley on the defensive side because he just can make such big plays. And I feel like when you look at this game, I mean, I feel like I could say this all day long, but it's going to be dependent on the fronts. I feel like the offense and defensive fronts on both sides of the ball are going to be key to this game. So I feel like whoever has the advantage there is going to win.
Players to watch for me is some of the big guns on both teams. Koku, the defensive lineman, offensive lineman for Greeley. Really, really long, solid athlete. He's going to have to come up big time, especially on the defensive line. And Sam Moore for Poughkeepsie. He is probably the best player in the class, and he has been dominant this year. And he's really, to me, he is somebody, I know now a lot of people look at the Hudson Valley Football League. He is a really talented football player. I did do a video breakdown of this matchup, and I know a lot of people look at always offense versus defense. I'm actually going to look at both of these offenses and how both have been really explosive. For this video, I'm going to talk about Horace Greeley's offense and Poughkeepsie's offense, and how they're both pretty dynamic. And I'm going to start with Horace Greeley. We know Ryan Wohl is one of the best players in the Hudson Valley Football League, has been a big-time player for them, running the ball and passing the ball, dual threat guy. But this offensive line and the receivers have also stepped up in a big way. And this is going to have to be a group effort to win this game. Can't all rely on the shoulders of Ryan Wohl. And when they played Poughkeepsie last time, I thought they had some success with crossers because Poughkeepsie, they like to use their speed, and they will play some man, and you got to test them. You have to hurt them with some man beaters. This is a nice example of one of the plays that was successful. Again, you have them close to the line of scrimmage, and what that does is you're not going to have these. You're going to have kind of a high-low concept with the DBs, and you're going to see two crossers over the middle. You're going to see some clear-out routes right here, and they know that they're playing Ryan Wohl who can run the ball, so they're going to have somebody who's spying on them. But again, with these long developing routes, these crossers, you need good protection up front, right? And this Greeley offensive line has been really reliable for them all season long, and these are the kind of plays they're going to have to hit. Solid job of pass protection. You're going to see they're going to bring some pressure late. But look at the clear out. It causes some confusion on who has who. Okay, you're going to see one of these crosses become wide open. Right, and these could be pretty successful in this game coming up. And again, the receivers getting those extra yards, that's going to be big. Another big part of Greeley is the RPO action. Right, they're going to be trips to the left. You're going to see they're going to fake a run. They have a man-to-man backside, and that's where they're going to attack it. And Ryan and these receivers have done a pretty solid job in the RPO action, okay? Because this is about winning on the route. You got to win. For the receiver, you got to beat your man to the inside, and your quarterback has to have a solid fake and deliver on time. That's extremely important. You got to deliver it on time. A good fake will draw the linebacker in like that. And again, this is a pretty good break on the ball by the corner. Receivers got to win this route. And they have been all season. And this is a pretty good example of it right here. Really good timing throw. Good job beating him to the inside. Breaks a tackle, and that's a touchdown. And we talk about, obviously, the passing game, some of the quick hitters, some of the man beaters, some of the RPO stuff, but the quarterback runs have been a huge staple for this offense as well. And they're going to have to use this quite often against Poughkeepsie. And again, faking it to the running back, you see the guard pull, and they have been feasting on this type of play all season. Quarterback is going to run to the left. And it all starts with winning the point of attack with these linemen. And again, not the biggest line, but they have some length to them. They do a good job of sealing off defenders, and you're going to see it right here. Again, good job at the point of attack right there. Good job at the point of attack right here. And look at the receivers getting involved. That's a good block right there. You give Ryan this kind of space, and there's going to be major problems for a defense. And they're going to try to test this. Get those one-on-one blocks, win those one-on-one blocks versus Poughkeepsie, and get Ryan in space. Let's go to Poughkeepsie now. And they have a dynamic offense as well with a lot of speed. And obviously the staple of that is Sam Moore, their running back, who's had over 1,000 yards rushing. And he is an absolute force. Last time they played, really had over 221 yards of total offense. And it's because this guy, he can run through contact, and when he gets in space, there's not many people who can stop him. And I'm expecting to see a heavy dose versus Greeley. And you're going to see under center, again, they'll go into shotgun, but this is just going to be a dive play. They bring in a tight end, trying to get him to the outside. And watch these guys work. Really good initial block by the tight end. And you're going to see he gets a good shot on this linebacker coming up, but if you don't rally, if you don't attack Sam Moore before he gets beyond the line of scrimmage, you're going to be in trouble. This guy's got some magic to him. Again, look at him. He makes the guy miss in the hole, and watch the speed now. Right? Look at that cut at the end. That's pretty. But it isn't all just Sam Moore. I mean, when these guys go into the spread, obviously all eyes are on Sam Moore. And you can see by the goal line, they got 7 guys by the line of scrimmage, even though they're in a 2-by-2. 7 guys by the box because they got to take away the run. And so what does Poughkeepsie do? Right, they're going to find a one-on-one matchup. Whitaker on the outside is a good route runner. They're going to motion trips to it. And you're going to see a fake slant back of the end zone. and a nice little timing throw with the quarterback, who's been real solid for them this year. Again, look at the fake, throw it, look at the placement. It's a great job. So again, they can hurt you running the ball, they can hurt you throwing the ball, but the final nail in a lot of defenses' coffin is the quarterback has the ability to run. And even when you feel you have good coverage, third down, he could take off and run. I mean, let's just watch right here. There's another good example versus Greeley. Again, he wants to throw it to the right. This linebacker does a good job of undercutting this route. Quarterback's not comfortable. Corner's going to pass it off to get this outside guy. The window's closed right here. Again, you could see the DN he's turning the corner to make this sack. But then the quarterback can step up into the pocket and take off, even when you have good coverage. He's tall, he's long, he's got solid speed, and that's going to be a first down. Again, both these offenses are dynamic, and which one can make the bigger plays and which defense can make the big play is going to be the difference in this one. Explosive. All right, Mars, let's go to the game picks. Again, this is the last time we're going to be picking all the games. After this week, we're just staying with the playoff games and playoff teams. But let's go through it, Mars. Let's talk about a playoff game first. Byram Hills 4-3 at Hen Hud, who's 4-3. These two teams, again, are always hard to get my finger on which one it's going to be. Byram Hills has the number one offense. Hen Hud's defense has been really solid all year round. The question is on both units on the other side. Hen Hud has a real strong rush attack. Sometimes they're not as efficient. And Byram Hills' defense, last week they were really good. The previous 2 weeks before that, not so much. So which unit is going to step up? I do think Byram Hills is going to. I think Byram Hills is going to win this game. This one, to me, is going to be the more interesting and closer games, but I'm going to go with Byram Hills.
I actually go Hen Hud. I think that their defense has been getting better. They've been staying tough against most teams, and if they can match the front of Byram Hills, that's going to cause some issues. And the fact that Hen Hud has a potent rush offense allows them to kind of own the time of possession. So I'm going to go Hen Hud here.
This is a CD matchup. Haldane 6-1 at Dobbs Ferry, who's 7-0. And I got to say this, I think Coach McConville is a Coach of the Year candidate for Haldane. They've had a tremendous season. This is the number 2 defense, Mars, out of all the C&D schools. But they've gotten a little banged up these last couple weeks. And Dobbs Ferry, number 1 offense and number 1 defense. I just think they're too strong on both fronts. I think they're going to make enough big plays running the football that Haldane can't match on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with Dobbs Ferry.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dobbs Ferry as well. I couldn't completely agree with you. Number 1 offense, number 1 defense, number 1 offensive line in this area. I feel like they can just move bodies, and the fact that Haldane has been hurting a little bit just gives Dobbs Ferry the advantage.
Hudson Valley Football League game, Irvington at Ramapo. Again, both teams were eliminated from the playoff spot. This one was always a little tough one for me because you're not sure how teams are going to react after being eliminated. But I'm going to go with Ramapo. I know offensively they've been really inconsistent. Defensively has been pretty solid. And pretty much same thing with Irvington. I like the way Irvington has coached and the effort that the kids have put out. I just feel like Ramapo's defense is going to be a little too much. I'm going Ramapo.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. Ramapo's defense has been very solid, and I just feel like having the home field advantage gives them the advantage in this game. I'm going to go Ramapo.
C matchup: Rhinebeck 1-5 at Albertus Magnus, who's 4-3. Listen, Rhinebeck is an improving team. I like the way they attacked the edge of defense last week on outside runs. Guys like Polchino and Heighton have been solid. But I'm going to go with Albertus Magnus. I really like the way LaRusso has been playing. And Gamey Savor at the running back spot, over 1,000 yards rushing. They have a nice little dynamic duo at the offensive side. And the defense, to me, is the big key. The last 2 weeks, they've been pretty solid. I'm going with Albertus Magnus.
Yeah, I'm going to Albertus Magnus. I feel like their defense has been consistently getting better. Offense has too much skill players on it. I feel like they're just going to make big plays whenever they need to. I'm going to go Albertus Magnus.
CD matchup: Blindbrook 3-4 at Tuckahoe, who's 6-1. Again, this is another Blindbrook. I really like the way that they've played this season. I think their defense has been really solid, but Tuckahoe is just too much. Tuckahoe scored 61 points last week. Offensively, with that offensive line, is really explosive. I do think Tuckahoe's defense has to step up. They've given up a little too many points over the last few weeks, and I think they will. I'm going Tuckahoe.
Yeah, I'm going to Tuckahoe too. I feel like you definitely have to applaud Blindbrook for improving so much. I just think Tuckahoe has too much for this game to be close. I'm going to go Tuckahoe.
Another interesting game: Valhalla 4-3 at Hastings. That's 2-5. Valhalla's offense, I think, needs to get back on track. It's kind of felt like it's hit a roadblock. They did have a pretty solid game 2 weeks ago against Tuckahoe. but just too many turnovers. And I do think that they are going to step up. I think their quarterback Dawson's going to hit some big plays, especially one to big play Butcher, one or two. Hastings, they've scored 30-plus points in 3 straight games. Robert Kennedy and Capuano have been really, really good. But I think Valhalla's going to make just enough plays defensively. This is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm going Valhalla.
Yeah, Valhalla, I feel like, just has the advantage. They just have a lot more skilled athletes. I feel like Dawson has been very good, so I'm going to go with Valhalla here.
C matchup, Woodlands 0-7 at CrotonHarmon, who's 1-6. CrotonHarmon has been beat up. They had a real tough loss versus Rhinebeck last week, but Woodlands has been struggling to get some consistency on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with CrotonHarmon there. Home. Again, health is definitely a concern for me, so I wouldn't be shocked if Woodlands wins this one. But I do think CrotonHarmon has enough. They're going to win this one.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. The fact that you're home, you have that home field advantage, do you? I also feel like, I know the injuries have been a little tough, but they just have enough. They're going to win in the close one. I'm going CrotonHarmon.
I'm going to pick this one. Pearl River 3-4 at Pleasantville 7-0. This is a B playoff game. Does Pearl River get revenge? Listen, Ryan O'Neal, he's a guy who can hit some big plays even passing the ball. The offense has been a lot more balanced as the second half of the season has gone on. But I'm going to go with Pleasantville. The number 1 defense in B. I think defense really can carry you. I know B is a very weird class, but I do think they're going to be able to run the ball, and the defense is going to make enough plays. I think their formula works, and it's going to work this week. I'm going Pleasantville. Let's go to the next playoff game, Mars. Briarcliff Hamilton football program 1-6 at Nanuet, who's 6-1. Nanuet lost last week, Mars. Are they on a little bit of a downturn? What do you think?
No, they aren't. I think they'll be fine. I think last week they probably overlooked Ardsley, and they played up against... The
quarterback didn't play.
The quarterback didn't play. And on top of that, they played up against a big front. So I think all these different things just added up. I'm going to go Nanuet in this game.
Listen, Briarcliff Hamilton's offense has played better in the last few weeks. But I'm going to go in Nanuet as well. Their physical rush tech, I think the offensive line and defensive line step up this week after they didn't have a great showing last week. Moran obviously is a special player, but I do think Frondy brings an extra dynamic to this offense. I'm going to go with Nanuet. Last 2 games, another playoff game. Ardsley 5-2 at Bronxville 4-3. The most interesting game in my opinion. I want to hear your thoughts on this one, Mars. Who do you got?
Well, this was interesting. I mean, I feel like, and I said this before, most evenly matched team, I think, of the playoffs in B right now. And the reason why is because you have Ardsley, who has several guys who can make big plays, solid offensive line, and then you have Bronxville, who has the top-tier athlete in B for sure, in O'Neal. And I feel like when you look at both these teams, it's going to depend on the offensive line and defensive line on both sides. I'm going to go with Ardsley here. I think Ardsley has the offensive line that really dominates the line of scrimmage. And we mentioned the fact that, I didn't have Ardsley as my 3, but I had them as my 4. You had them as a top-tier offensive line as number 2. And I feel like they do have the size that they can be that good, right? Bronxville's defense struggles, right, in a lot of cases. Their offense is just high-octane scoring. But if you can control the line of scrimmage and control the time of possession for Ardsley's perspective, you're not going to allow O'Neal to score as many points as he would like to. So I'm going to go Ardsley here.
Listen, Bronxville with O'Neal and Garofalo have been a strong duo. This is a high-octane offense. But I picked Ardsley to win it all. I have to go with Ardsley. I'm taking Ardsley. I thought last week was a big moment for them, offensive line-wise and identity-wise, and I think they continue that this week. Control time of possession. I'm going Ardsley. Let's go to the final game, Mars. The Hudson Valley Football League Championship. Greeley 6-1 at Poughkeepsie, who's 5-2. Who do you got and why?
Well, I really like the fact that both these teams have gotten a lot better, right? I feel like they looked at Poughkeepsie last winning season in 9 years or something like that. And Greeley, having such a big spark offensively, where they're able to make a lot of big plays, and it looks like a very good story. Both teams do. I'm going to go Greeley. I think Greeley has the offensive momentum right now. Both these teams are very evenly matched, but I think that Greeley's skill players just give them enough of an edge and allows them to make the big plays to add up those points. I think Poughkeepsie's going to have a tough game, but I think Greeley's going to win in the end.
This was a really tough one for me. Poughkeepsie has the best player in Sam Moore, and they have the speed advantage. To me, the question is, can Greeley's defensive line make enough plays? And I think they are. I'm going to go with Greeley. I do think this is going to be a high-scoring game, and I do think Greeley's defense will make enough plays. But this is going to be a real fun one. But I am going to go with Greeley. All right, everyone, that was our show. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, we want to thank you guys for all the support. We hope you have a sports-filled weekend, and we'll see you all very soon.